Welcome to this week's Community Forum. Joining us, we have Sherry Brake, author and ghost hunter. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we are too. I can't wait to hear all about ghost hunting and your background. So let's start off right there. How did you initially get into ghost hunting?
Well, I was an odd child. I grew up in the 60s, early 70s when television shows were on TV like The Twilight Zone,
Okay.
The Outer Limits, probably before your time. But these were all science fiction shows, and watching them, it really piqued my interest at an early age. When I could learn to read, I would go to the library and I would get out crazy titled books like UFOs and the Egyptian pyramids and ESP and the witch trials in Salem and all these crazy things that I was reading at, age 7, 8, 9.
Wow.
So I started out early on with a real interest in the paranormal. And eventually through the years, it led into me doing paranormal investigations in my early 20s.
Okay.
Now in my early 50s, so, and I just gave away my age.
Yeah.
Whoops. But
Hey, that's all right.
I've been at it for a long time. I've been investigating for about 30 years now.
Okay.
Long before it became popular on TV, back in the days when you really didn't talk too much about it because there weren't that many people that were out there investigating the paranormal. And now it is really a hot commodity. It's very popular, and a lot of people have it as a hobby.
And how did you initially decide to just make that into your business?
Well, I was
And a career.
Yeah, exactly. I was a stay-at-home mom. So I'd worked in the nursing industry in Ohio and decided to stay home for about 10, 12 years with the kids. And I became a Civil War reenactor. And
neat.
during some of these reenactments, we'd all gather around the fire late at night, and sometimes I'd tell stories. And I would interject a little bit about my paranormal investigations. And I came up with this idea to start a haunted history walking tour in Ohio. And I put up a website. This is back in 2000. Put up a website, invited people to join me. Pay $10, meet me on the street corner, and I'll walk you throughout this neat little town and tell you the stories. And I had 30 people that showed up for the very first walking tour.
That's awesome.
And I went, oh my goodness, they're paying me to tell them stories, to talk about these places, and hopefully they'll learn something about the architecture, the history, the ghost stories, and they'll come back. So the haunted walking tours led into doing bus trips, which led into adventures at Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky, Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. We rent out the battleship in North Carolina. We do ghost hunts on the USS North Carolina now. So it kind of branched out to that. And now I'm doing tours in Ireland and Scotland as well. So
That's incredible.
yeah, and it's all due to my love in history, my love in the mystery of the paranormal, and educating people and maybe entertaining them a little bit. So it's a win-win for everybody.
And you mentioned just the history behind most of these places you go.
Oh yes, yes.
What are some of the really most interesting
Oh,
spots?
well, I'll tell you what, one of my favorites, I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but one of my favorites happens to be in West Virginia. Although I'm not from West Virginia originally, my family is. I developed a real love relationship with the West Virginia Penitentiary, which is in Moundsville.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's kind of weird to hear somebody say they developed a love interest, with a building. And a lot of people know what I'm talking about, but when you go into a building or you go into a home, you feel an instant connection with it. And that's the way I felt when I did my very first tour of the West Virginia Pen. And oh, what a magnificent place this is. And I know you've not been there.
No, that's on my list.
But when you pull up and you look at it, it kind of looks like a fortress. It's a Gothic fortress, walls that are 5 feet thick, walls that are 22 feet high in stone. You had over 998 murders, suicides, documented deaths in that building. And that is where they put you to death. If you were condemned in the state of West Virginia and they had the death penalty, that's where you went. You were either hung in the early days or you were executed by sitting in the electric chair. So that place has got the history, it's got the architecture. It was listed as one of the most violent prisons in the United States at one time. So it's a pretty big building.
Yeah.
And boy, it has a lot to offer.
It sounds like it. I'm excited to add that to my list. A little nervous, but excited.
You love it. You'll love it. I'll walk you around.
There we go.
I'll give you a private personal tour of the building. A lot of people are very overwhelmed when they first walk in.
I bet.
You look right over and automatically you see some guns and you see the electric chair as you come through the door. Of course, the guns are on display. They're not aimed at you.
Right.
But it's a pretty overwhelming place. And people that are sensitive to the energies, when they come in, sometimes they just feel that overwhelming sense of sadness. Some people feel like they can't take a deep breath because of the oppressiveness of that energy that's in that building.
That's amazing that it really has such a strong impact
Yeah,
on people.
it does, and it's huge. It sits on 10 acres of property, and it's about 5 blocks long by about 2 blocks wide. And they do day tours there, and they have overnight ghost hunts, and I have one coming up this summer there as well.
Awesome.
So, and a fundraiser that we're doing on July 15th that
Okay.
benefits the prison.
And for our viewers who are interested in doing one of these tours, what can they expect for their first time?
Oh my goodness. Well, when they show up, of course, we do a late evening tour. We start off at about 11:30 at night, and we're there till 5 in the morning.
Whoa.
And a lot of people say, well, where do we sleep? What are the sleeping accommodations? There is no sleeping accommodations unless you want to sit on somebody's cell bunk, you know, and try to get some sleep. But
No,
hardly,
thanks.
no, I don't recommend that. But we start off with a 1-hour tour. We supply food. We have pizza. We have all kinds of munchies and drinks for everybody. We do the 1-hour tour with one of their guides, and they're terrific there with giving a nice balance of the history and the paranormal. And then after the tour is over, we turn everybody loose, and they get to explore on their own till 5 o'clock in the morning. Some people simply bring themselves. Other people bring bags and containers and cases of equipment. They'll bring cameras, they'll bring digital voice recorders to try to capture some voices. Some people bring really expensive equipment, you know, high dollar stuff, and other people just bring themselves. And they hope to have an experience, and that's what it's all about. And usually everybody is there till 5 o'clock. We're a pretty tired group at the end, but it's well worth it.
Oh, yeah. So much to just observe and feel.
Oh, definitely so. Definitely so. And that's one of my favorite buildings to explore.
And your location is in Summersville, correct?
Right. I have an office in Summersville, and that's where I write my books. I've got 8 books out now.
Yes, we have some on display
You have some
here.
of them here. I don't think, not all of them made the trip, but
Tell us about some of those that we have
sure.
in front here.
Sure. There's 3 books that are up front there that are the Fireside Folklore of West Virginia, and that is a series that I did. I write for a couple of West Virginia publications. I have a column. I write for Two-Lane Living magazine, and I also write for Graffiti. And the columns that I do are on haunted locations, historical locations across the state of West Virginia. So for the 3 volumes of Fireside Folklore West Virginia, that's a compilation of the columns that I wrote for Two-Lane Living.
Okay.
So they're an easy read. They're about 140 pages each. There's about 70, 80 photographs in each book. So it's a great book for teens. I've even had some teachers in the state tell me that they've used it for some of their classes.
Oh, great.
So that's nice to be able to feature different locations across the state. Stories about the Greenbrier Ghost. Stories about a local building here in Fayette County called the Whipple Coal Company store.
Yes, that's also on my list.
There's a couple chapters in the books there on Mothman, which of course I'm sure everybody's probably familiar with the Mothman Prophecy movie.
Yes.
That came out with Richard Gere years ago on Point Pleasant.
Yes.
The town of Point
and now a
Pleasant.
documentary coming out in June, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So it's a nice series if you're interested in what West Virginia has to offer, you know, spooky, dark history, folklore kind of a thing. And then the other book that's sitting next to it there is the book on the old Weston State Hospital, which is called the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It sounds like a whole lot going on.
It's a pretty impressive building. It is the largest stone-cut building in America. It's the 2nd largest stone-cut building in the world behind the Kremlin. And there are miles and miles of hallways. And this was built back, you know, during the Civil War and used as what they called a lunatic asylum. Of course, that's not proper these days to say that, but that was the original title
Back then, yeah.
of the building. It was built to house about 250 souls in the building, and it ended up with over 2,000. So there was a lot of overcrowding.
Yeah.
You had a lot of incidences of violence between the inmates, and it's a very beautiful building, architecturally wise, but it has that dark history side to it as well. So I felt really compelled to write a book on the old state hospital. My aunt actually worked there as a nurse back in the
Interesting.
70s, and my mother-in-law did too, as well. So
I'm sure they
it's-
gave you a lot of
there was some stories
stories.
passed around, definitely so. Definitely so. Then we have a book here on the Ohio State Reformatory, which if you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption,
Yes.
that's where that was filmed at, was
Oh,
at the
okay.
Ohio State Reformatory. And that is another place that I do investigations at and offer ghost hunts to people. And then we have a book on Stark County, Ohio, which is the Canton area. That was my first book. And finally, the big book is on the haunted history of the West Virginia Penitentiary.
Awesome.
You've got to get yourself there.
That's the third one on the list.
I know. This list just keeps getting longer and longer, doesn't
it
it?
does. I need to get started. Where can our viewers purchase these?
Well, you can purchase them at Amazon. That's usually the fastest and the cheapest way to get books. But they're also available in Nicholas County. The Chronicle newspaper office has them for sale. There is a general store in Muddledy, which is just north of Summersville. It's called Uncle P's General Store. You can purchase them there. And I sell them as well on my website.
And what's your website?
The website is hauntedhistory.net.
Okay.
And if you want to support the West Virginia Book Company, you could go to their website and purchase any kind of book on West Virginia through there, and my books are available there as well. The
Oh,
West
great.
Virginia Book Company, and they're out of Charleston.
All right, everyone be sure to check those out. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Community Forum. If you're just joining us, we have Sherry Brake here, author and ghost hunter. Welcome again, and thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We just talked about some of your books up front here that everyone can purchase on Amazon or on your website.
Right.
And I know you brought some ghost gear with you.
I did.
Tell
I
me
did.
a little bit about
Well,
that.
people are always interested. You know, when you do these big group investigations, when you go out and you explore. You know, what do I bring? What can I use? What's acceptable? Some people just like to bring themselves, especially if they're of the psychic nature or they're sensitive to the energies. They don't want to use any type of equipment. But some of us that are psychically impaired, like me, I like to use some equipment, and it kind of enhances the experience. Now, this is something that if you've watched any of the television shows, Ghost Hunters or you know, anything on TV, they have a wide assortment of equipment that they'll use. And these are basically called EMF meters. These are meters that are used to pick up on energy. Now, they're not made for ghost hunting. If you would go out to your local store and say, I want to buy a ghost meter, they're going to laugh at you. These are pieces of equipment that people, they pick up and they hope to capture some type of energy, paranormally speaking. EMF stands for electromagnetic field. And what you're doing with these meters is you're picking up on energy that is around you. Now, the downfall of this equipment is that it will also pick up on man-made electrical energy.
Okay.
If I'm standing in front of a television set, a refrigerator, a
Cell
microwave,
phones.
yeah. Nowadays, cell phones not so much because they're tailor-made to not have that much energy come off of them, but it could trigger them. But the idea is to be in a building and away from the electrical source. These work up to about 5 feet. So let's say, for instance, we're in an old cemetery. No electric around us, no refrigerators, no microwaves. We have one of these and they go off. That tells us that there's some type of energy that's in the direct area around us. And that would mean that we would need to take photographs, we would need to turn on our recording equipment and hopefully capture something. So these are a nice way to get people involved, especially people that are more scientifically minded. They're very analytical, they want proof, they like to hold a piece of equipment.
Okay.
So this is something that we would use for that. It would detect the energy. Some people like to bring along a non-contact thermometer, and that's what this is. This you simply aim in the corner, you turn the button on, and it'll give you the temperature reading. Many times when you have paranormal activity around you, you can get a drop in the energy, cold spots. How many times have we seen that on TV?
Oh, yeah.
You know, where the person in the room exhales and you can see their breath and it turns just icy automatically. The theories with ghosts and with energy and with paranormal energy is that the ghosts kind of take the energy out of the area to try to manifest. That's why your batteries would go dead. That is why your camera would stop working. Lights might flicker on and off. Equipment might not work correctly. And you would get that temperature drop because temperature is energy as well. So you've got people that bring in, 20 pounds of equipment. Other people show up with just a camera,
Right.
and they hope to capture something.
Okay.
To me, it's just about being in the experience. Back in the early days, I would carry a ton of equipment. Now, not so much, because I want to kind of be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to record proof for myself that things exist because I know that.
Right.
After being in the field for so long, I've seen things happen that I can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty rational, I'm practical, down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
I like science. Not everything is haunted, but there are quite a few things that I am not able to explain. To give you some examples, I've been in the prison or in the old Weston State Hospital,
Yeah.
had my hair pulled. I mean, just
Ooh.
physically like that. Went and turned around thinking that somebody, was standing there behind me, and there's nobody there. Or I've heard voices. I've heard my name whispered, and turned around thinking that it's one of my tour guests, and there's nobody down a
Gives me
long,
the
dark
chills
hallway.
hearing about it.
I know, right? And I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. I'll give you another example. I was at the Ohio State Reformatory. I was getting ready to set up for an event. I'm standing in the warden's dining room. I'm making a pot of coffee. There's only 2 or 3 people in the building besides me. And behind me, on the wooden floor, I hear boot steps behind me. And I turn around, and I'll never forget, I had the coffee pot in my hand. I turn around thinking it's somebody that's there that's working.
Right.
Came in to check in on me, and there's nobody behind me.
Did you drop the coffee?
No, I went, this is interesting. This is interesting when something like that happens. I find it fascinating. And whether you believe or not, you probably know people that have had experiences, or maybe you've had experiences where maybe you've had a vivid dream of somebody that's passed on, and you feel like they've been there with you. You smell them, you feel them, you sense them.
Yeah.
This is all just outside of the realm of what we know. There's so much out there that we can't prove exists, but yet for thousands of years people have had experiences. And you even go back to the Bible. You've got people talking to spirits, you've got people doing amazing things, miracles happening. So,
And how do you approach, aside from enthusiasts that go on these tours, do you ever have skeptics that come?
once in a while I'll have a skeptic that come, and it just delights me when something happens to them. I have had skeptics that have come and they've driven their wife to the event. My wife really wanted to come. I don't believe in anything that you do. Nothing like this can happen. I'm just, humoring her. And then a couple hours later, I'll see him, the skeptic, sitting out by the coffee pot or out by the food table, and I'll be like, you having a good time? You're not going to make me go back in there. Well, why not? I saw something and I can't explain it. And I wasn't a believer before, but now I'm kind of questioning it. So that thrills me when something like that happens.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, it is neat. And I do. I love to enlighten people about these buildings. And like I said, I base everything on history. Why is this property haunted? Why do people experience smelling the scent of roses in this one room? Why do people tend to see an apparition on this staircase? Why do people get this overwhelming sense of doom when they walk into this room? So I like to see that happen time and time again.
And it makes it an
it's a
overall
pattern.
educational experience.
Yes, definitely.
They're learning
so
much about a new area, a new building.
Right. And a lot of times I'm invited to go into school systems and talk to the kids on the area's dark history and include some
They
ghost
must get so
stories.
excited.
Well, kids, they could care less about history, most of them, right? Until you
They
throw
just wanna-
in, down the street here somebody was beheaded, or somebody was hung out of the
Then they're
gallows
alert.
tree. They're like, what? And they're a little bit more interested in it. So anything that can help spark someone's imagination or their curiosity, I'm all for it.
And you said that you do how many tours a year?
I do about 70 to 80 tours a year. I cover 7 states, 8 states. A lot of these events are drive-to events where people will meet me. Back in the old days, I used to run bus tours, but that doesn't work anymore. If you get people coming from 6, 7 different states, it doesn't make any sense to have them, gather on a big haunted bus and join me. So everybody basically drives and meets me. This year we've got a lot planned. We've got the Ohio State Reformatory events in Mansfield, Ohio. We've got West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville. We've got the USS North Carolina Battleship in Wilmington, North Carolina, booked for a ghost hunt.
That's awesome.
This weekend coming up, we're at Nemacolin Castle in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
which is going to be really cool. And we're there again in November, too, of this year. So there's lots planned.
And you just got back from Ireland.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, did a Haunted Ireland
How was
trip.
that?
Fast. Oh, come on. It's Ireland.
Can't go wrong.
It's wonderful. It's history, it's mystery, it's architecture. It was a 7-day tour. So we did the Blarney Castle. We all kissed the Blarney Stone. We went up to Northern Ireland, to Belfast. We went to Giant's Causeway. We were in the most haunted castle in Ireland, which is Leap Castle. It's been on a lot of the television shows. It's a private home, so it's really a cool thing to be able to be invited into somebody's private castle and
Yeah.
explore, and it's a lot of fun. And we're back over there in September,
Okay.
as a matter of fact, for another Haunted Ireland.
Very awesome.
Yeah, and folks can sign up through the website and
Okay.
make payments and join me. And we're off exploring.
I'm sure you have a few already hooked that are ready to sign up.
Definitely so. We've got tours in 2018 that are almost filled up already. So
That's incredible.
yeah, the one tour that we've got in the fall of 2018 features a boat ride across Loch Ness. So for people that are into cryptids,
You don't hear that every day.
right. People that are into cryptids, cryptid is an animal that really hasn't been proven to exist by science. So that would be Bigfoot, that would be Mothman, and it would also be Loch Ness Monster. So people join up with us, and we take a little boat across Loch Ness and look over into the water.
You never know what you might
and
see.
you never know
Or
what you
hear.
might encounter. It's fascinating, and it's so beautiful over there.
That's so great. And tell us, for our viewers who are just joining, if they're going to sign up for their first tour, what can they expect?
Oh my goodness! Well, you can expect to be fed. I'm like the Martha Stewart of paranormal tours. I like to bring a lot of food,
Hey,
with
sounds
me
great
for
to me.
everybody. Keep the coffee pots going. We'll have a tour of whatever location that we're at. We'll have a tour just so you kind of get your grounding, your feeling for the lay of the building. And I always joke, note where your exits are at, just in case. Right? It's always good to know how to get out of Dodge when you need to
That
get out
is
of
true.
Dodge.
Are
But
they always at night, or are there some in the day?
the majority is at night.
Okay.
It's at night. It's quieter at night. The equipment is easier to use at night because you've got a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of lights and a lot of things, digital readouts that you need to see. And it's just a better atmosphere. You have none of that daytime noise around you. Traffic is less on the roads, which factors into a lot of these big buildings because they're usually in a city, and you've got a lot of street noise, so you want to try to do it when it's as quiet as possible. So nighttime, yeah. I like to do them at night. But we'll do a tour around the building just so you kind of get the lay of the property. And then you'll have on your own time to investigate. So you can go out with your partner, whoever you brought with you, or you can hook up with one of the groups and go around and sit and hopefully have an experience.
And leave with your own stories.
And leave with your own story. That's right. And come back again. Because I love to see repeat people. We're one big happy haunted family.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. And speaking of the items you brought, for people that are going to go on a tour, do they need to bring their own, or do you supply any?
At some of the events, and we'll have that on our website, at some of the events we'll actually have equipment for you to use.
Okay.
Specifically the Death by Dessert Ghost Hunt at the Ohio State Reformatory. I have a whole table of gear for people to borrow. Everything from the EMF meters, non-contact thermometers, compasses. Compasses are a very cheap piece of gear to have for an investigator.
Sure.
I'll also instruct people on how to use pendulums and also dowsing rods, because there are some people that don't want to put their hands on a piece of scientific equipment. They want something a little bit more metaphysical to use, so they prefer to use pendulums or dowsing rods for that. And then, they can go off on their own and hopefully have an experience. And It's pretty cool because after the event's over, within a few days, I'll start getting feedback. People will say, oh, I captured a voice. You know, here's a file of it. Would you like to listen? Or I might have caught something in my photographs. We're sending you, 20 pictures to look at. Could you take a look and tell us what you think?
Right.
And it's neat because I get new people that come and they get so into investigating that they start their own groups. And I've had at least a dozen people that have started their own paranormal investigating groups because they've come on a tour. I've had a couple that got married on our tour once. I've had people that have met on tours and they've ended up getting married.
Wow.
So it's a pretty cool. Not that I'm a matchmaker
hey,
or anything like that.
Maybe onto something.
For an extra fee.
There you go, right?
But it's pretty cool because it's a great passion for people to have, to go out exploring and to make an entire vacation out of going out in a road trip, a paranormal road trip. I mean, you could do one across the state of West Virginia.
Right.
You could
So
start
much to
off
see.
here, right? You could do the Whipple Coal Company store in Fayette County. You could go on down and visit the Greenbrier Ghost Grave, outside of Lewisburg. You could go up to Mothman Country in Mason County, where Point Pleasant's at. You could do the Mothman Festival. That's in September. That's the third weekend of September. You could go to the West Virginia Penitentiary, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Hospital. I mean,
It's like endless.
it goes on and on and on.
Endless list.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I want to let you share just where people can contact you, purchase your books. What's
Sure
the
thing.
best way? Social media,
The-
website?
Yeah, social media. I've got 9 Facebook pages, so they're out there. So if they
find one
just
of
did,
those.
yeah, right. Probably the easiest way is to go to the website at
Okay.
hauntedhistory.net.
Okay.
The entire schedule's there, the calendar's there. Folks can call me. My phone number's on there, and my email address. And book something, and I hope to see them out there.
Perfect.
And I love to share the history of the state. So even if they're not into doing something like a ghost hunt, they can pick up a Tulane Living magazine somewhere. They're free. Graffiti magazines are free as well. And read a little bit more about Appalachian dark history and folklore.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this very interesting information
Thank
with us.
you.
We're
Thank
so
you
happy
for
you were able
having
to
me.
come in today.
Yeah, and I love to come back. There's
Yes.
always a lot more to share.
There is. And thank you all for joining us. Be sure to contact Sherry and book your haunted tour soon, and have a great rest of your day.